Well, the big question is, should you buy a Festool Domino? And if the answer to that question is all you've come for, then I'll give you the answer straight away. That way you can just skip the rest of the video and get on with your day. The answer is a resounding yes, yes you should. However, if you want to know more about my reasonings, then stick around and find out why, and also find out why I needed 2 dominoes. Looking through YouTube, we all do it. It's often said that the Festool Domino is the most controversial tool in woodworking, but to my mind that's not necessarily true. It's only controversial to those who don't own one. For those of us that do, then there's no controversy at all. But there are some elephants in the room, not the least of which is going to be the cost. There's no argument from me that it's expensive, so I did go through a lot of soul searching before buying or pulling the trigger on buying one, but I'll come back to that. The next elephant would be that it's not real woodworking, which then leads on to there's nothing that a domino can do that the other tools can't. So what convinced me? I took the cost issue to heart, I've got to say. I had to ask the question, would it pay for itself? And the answer was probably not. So I asked myself some other questions. I asked myself, would my joinery benefit from it? And the answer was probably yes. Would my woodworking, would that be more precise, more accurate? Again, I believe that it would. And finally, would it save me time, energy, heartache? And the answer to all 3 of those was yes, I think it would. So as you can see, the positives, they started to outweigh the negatives for me. And just to put the icing on the cake, the cost issue, if I were looking from a business perspective, was negated by the time saving. Marry this with the quality of Festool products, I've got a few of them, and cost it sort of became less of an issue. And at this point I was starting to be convinced, but I still wasn't fully there yet. It's not real woodworking. Now this bothered me because I'm somewhat conservative and I wanted to grow as a craftsman and not a machinist. There's nothing wrong with being a machinist, it's just not who I am. But that's a bit ridiculous also because I've got so many other power tools and I don't give them a second thought. An odd one, but I got my head around it. As for real woodworking, is that not just something that's made out of wood that gives both the woodworker and the recipient pleasure and satisfaction? It took me back to reminiscing about my youth. My Uncle Bill and my father would have they would have me sawing wood in straight lines and sanding wood to perfection and cutting mortise and tenons by hand for hours on end on the basis that it was going to improve my skills. But I know in my heart that had a Festool Domino been around in their day, they would have both had one. Yes, other tools can achieve a floating tenon, or other fixing methods can be used to achieve good joints. Had I not had the budget for a domino, I would have happily carried on with those options. But I did have the budget, but I also had the desire to own one. And to top it all, everyone knows that Festool, by just owning anything Festool, it instantly gives you bigger boy bits. I have to admit that's not much of a selling point if you're a lady woodworker, but to me it was a selling point. As an aside, since owning Festool products, I have to dispute that claim. So, with all this said, I pulled the trigger, and having now used the Domino extensively, I now feel confident in saying that if you are in a position to buy one, then you should. Why? Because for me this is probably the greatest invention in woodworking in generations. I'll explain that thought pattern now. There is no doubt that when you first unbox a domino, it's more confusing than it appears in many of the videos on YouTube. But that confusion is fairly short-lived. I resisted the urge to jump straight into a project, instead of which I took lots of time to learn the projects and went through copious amounts of offcuts. I tried the usual butt joints, stock alignments, mitered joints, putting joints in the middle of boards. The list goes on, but I also took the time learning about the size of cutters, how to adjust the height and the depth of the cut, using the guides, and during this more than one visit to YouTube to check that I was doing it correctly. There was some frustration at first, but suddenly it sort of all clicked, and I could go and stop and think about what I wanted to achieve and then start seeing it in my mind's eye. And it was at that moment that I became a Festool Domino fanboy. In fact, there's probably many of you that would say I'm a Festool fanboy full stop, and there is an element of truth in that, I guess. I have Festool miter saw, a Festool sander, a Festool dust extractor, Festool router, and Festool track saw. I do enjoy the quality and the precision of the tools, but they've been around for 100 years and they have the confidence to give a warranty that's second to none, and in my opinion that says a lot about the company. But you will also find Makita DeWalt tools in this workshop. I'm not a one brand guy. If I like a product and it's well made, it's accurate and serves a purpose, then I will buy it, whatever the label says. So that's my take on the Festool Domino, but no matter what I say, there will be people who love it, there will be people that hate it. You just need to make up your own mind. Finally, why did I need two dominoes? Well, one was for joinery and the other one was because I was absolutely starving. Until the next time, look after yourself.